Hi folks. A month ago, I made a video explaining the economic effects of Brexit where Britain left the EU. As I said in that video, I couldn't cover everything, and one of these is the UK housing market. So in this video, I will explain how Brexit affects housing in the UK. Quick disclosure, I am still biased to Brexit, but I will remain objective.
To understand our current situation, here are the facts. Britain joined the EEC in 1973 and it became the European Union, or the EU, in 1992. The EU is a trading bloc, which is a group of nations that agreed to lower trade barriers such as tariffs or regulation. In 2016, Britain voted to leave, and in January 2020, we officially left the European Union. At the time of the vote, we had 34 trade deals that covered 60 countries due to the EU negotiating on behalf of us. According to Statista, the EU represented 43.7% of UK exports and 53.1% of UK imports back in 2015. Hence, at that time, the EU was our largest trading partner, but due to current negotiations, that remains to be seen. And so regardless of what you think, the EU is economically very important. And the 2008 financial recession was caused by foolish lending by the banks. And in the aftermath of the 2008 financial recession, there was some severe knock-on effects which decreased national incomes, and regulation was enacted to prevent this risky lending again. Sadly, these regulations, as well as the fall in incomes, have made it harder to buy homes. Before we move on to the economic effects, the links for the data that I'm going to use, as well as my Brexit video, will be in the description. In my previous video, I elaborated that the main disadvantage of Brexit was uncertainty on economic matters. This uncertainty will decrease business and consumer confidence. Confidence is the outlook on the economy at a given time period. Brexit will make the population less confident in the markets, especially the housing market. This decreases the demand for houses, so house prices will fall, or there will be a lower growth in house prices. There is a benefit and disadvantage to this. A disadvantage is that the lower prices will create a negative wealth effect and decrease the economic growth of the UK. A wealth effect is that a change in asset and a person's assets will affect how they spend. So in this example of Brexit, because of the lower prices, this will decrease the wealth of homeowners since their assets is homes. So this will decrease confidence and spending. However, an advantage to this is that since the housing market has had higher prices for a long time, even when accounting for inflation, the lower prices or the fall in house price growth will make it easier for first-time buyers to get a house. Moreover, Brexit will end freedom of movement, which decreases immigration. This is done by having the same standards for EU immigration and non-EU immigration, since it is easier when Britain was in the EU for EU immigrants to enter the country. Brexit alone won't lower immigration significantly, but I have heard that there's certain evidence that this will change. Immigration matters as it increases population, which increases demand for houses. Opponents may argue that wouldn't the rise in the domestic population also contribute to house price growth? However, the UK birth rate is 1.8 births per woman when it needs to be 2.1 to replace the population, and hence immigration is mostly contributing to population growth. Furthermore, immigration is also disproportionately low income, so they'll be more likely to compete with first-time buyers for houses. So a fall in immigration would arguably decrease the growth in house prices. although an evaluation point to this is that the UK has an aging population where there is a greater proportion of pensioners who can't work. In addition, EU migrants disproportionately work as builders for houses. They earn lower wages, so once many of them leave after Brexit, labour wages will increase, forcing house building companies to charge more for their services. This would inevitably increase the price of houses. Other potential causes and effects of Brexit on the housing market are the following. For interest rates, it was predicted that the central bank would decrease interest rates to mitigate the negative economic effects of Brexit. This appears to be true since interest rates was lowered from 0.5% to 0.25% in between 2016 and 2017, which was when the Leave vote happened. This would decrease the cost of borrowing, which increases the incentive for people to buy houses, but they are still most likely not going to buy due to lower confidence. A second factor would be business relocation, where businesses may choose to move to other areas in the EU due to lower business confidence. This means more offices and properties will be vacant, so there will be a greater availability of supply of property, which would lower property prices. As we all know, Brexit will cause a fall in economic growth. So the lower economic growth will lower incomes and profits. This means that workers will have less incomes to save and buy properties, so where there will be less houses bought. The glossary. The trading bloc. This is a group of nations that agreed to lower trade barriers such as tariffs and regulation. Economic growth. An increase in the availability of goods and services. Business confidence. The outlook on an economy by a business. Consumer confidence. The outlook on an economy by a consumer. Exports. This is goods and services that are produced by one country and sold to consumers in another country. Imports. This is goods and services that are bought by consumers in one country from another country who produced them. Interest rates. The cost of borrowing and the reward for saving. Wealth effect. People spend more as the value of the assets increase. I would just like to say thank you for watching, and if you like this video, please rate, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you later.